I will give you the formula for the best way to sustain your happiness, and you will get to peek in on two cows who are unhappy. Yes, two cows unhappy with their high-rise penthouse apartment. Welcome to No Bow Tie, where we conquer emptiness and frustration, discover our uniqueness, and live with unrelenting joy. I'm John No Bow Tie Swoboda, musician and author. My all-time favorite Far Side cartoon by Gary Larson. Two cows are in a luxurious apartment. One of them is sitting in a chair, comfortably reading the newspaper with a martini wedged in his hoof. The other, his wife, stands on two legs, looking out a scenic window at the city, and she is adorned with jewelry and also has a martini wedged in her hoof. And she's looking down at her husband and says, "Harold, I'm just not happy." Today's episode is just that, about how we think that happiness eludes us, that it's something that we have to seek rather than nurture. Take a moment, be sure to subscribe at nobowtie.com/life. My brother and I were passing through Las Vegas years ago. We were headed to Zion to go backpacking to enjoy my 30th birthday. And we decided to get a hotel in Las Vegas, sleep the night through, wake up early and get out. As we go into the hotel, it's 2 a.m. We walk in and the place is full of gambling. All the bells and buzzers are going off. The drinks are flowing. The noise is going. The music is pounding. And it's like we walked into a disco or something. As I walked through, all of the colors seemed happy and all the lights were blinking, but the people, I looked at the people. I thought I was looking at a group of zombies. They're sitting, leaning on one arm late in the night, just shoving quarters or shoving nickels in the slot machine, whatever you put, and sitting around gambling, frowning, aggravated, some even arguing. Nobody was having fun. Nobody was laughing joyously because they were there with a friend. Once in a while, you'd hear somebody be congratulated that they won on a slot machine, and then they go right back to shoving the nickels in. They couldn't get enough. And I'll ask you, what were they after that they didn't already have? They wanted to hit the jackpot. They wanted to hit a quick fix way of making a bad life better. It's an illusion. And I know sometimes our situation is dire. We get a diagnosis. We get a huge life change that just forces us down into a dark zone. Or we get bad news, about a relative, and we just can't muster the happiness. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about everyday life where we think that the pursuit of more is what is required to make us happy. And it's just not true. But do you have it in your everyday life? Required routines that keep you comforted, but they don't really give you a lot of joy. It doesn't expand your horizons. It doesn't ignite your imagination. It doesn't connect you with you as much as just keep you at bay. Take a moment and think of the opposite. Do you have the things ongoing, the changes in your life that you're self-inducing, that are igniting your imagination, making you a creative person in whatever way? It can be creativity as a family member, an artist, a musician, somebody who at work. You can be ignited with creativity and be a trash man. And maybe you're living a life hoping that something outside of you will raise your spirits and be the answer to your joy, the answer to your happiness. Well, I have good news and I have bad news, and they're both in one sentence. It doesn't work that way. I was playing pool with a friend one night, and he was griping about his wife. And it was odd because he started out by saying that he came home one night from work and dinner was made. And he had his favorite bourbon sitting in a glass right when he walked in the door. And she was joyful and she had the house cleaned up. And he sat down to eat. She sat down and they had a great conversation. She was flirting with him. And they went for a drive and watched the sunset and came home. Great night. The next night, the same thing, a different dinner. And he was so surprised. He was taken by it. He was, he was joyful. And she sat down with him. They had a great time together. They ate dinner together. The next night, the same thing. And the fourth night, he came home and there was no dinner made. And she was in the back room taking care of some things of her own. And he was kind of caught off guard by it. And as a matter of fact, he told me that it made him kind of grumpy, that he was expecting that dinner to be made, and he sure really enjoyed it. Well, he didn't say anything. He threw something in the microwave, got something to eat. And the next night, he came home, and again, no dinner was made. So he said something. He said, honey, I really enjoyed the last few days that I came home and you had dinner made, and why don't you have it tonight? I was really expecting it. That would have been great. She said, well, I had other things to do, and besides, I thought maybe it was your turn. It turned into an argument because he expected the joy. And I'll say it again, that expectation cancels joy. When you start to expect it, you'll feel the darkness move in on top of that because it doesn't work that way. What could he have done instead? And needless to say, he fell into a pocket, which is the next subject that I'd like to talk about. And that is, instead of seeing the possibility of something, just seeing it for what it was. The first night, he saw the possibility of it. Oh, it's going to be a great night, a romantic evening with my wife. By the third night, he was seeing what it was. I get dinner served. I don't have to do anything. I get dinner served. How often do you see something for what it is, a day at work, time with a relative, or even a neighbor, instead of what it can be? One of the problems with being in a musical group is when we rehearse, if we see the rehearsal for what it is, it's a total drag. It's repetition after repetition. The hours get late. You're just putting together a product. But when we see the possibility for what it can become, when we think of the smiles it might bring to people, or the cool groove that'll happen with it when the drummer joins in the studio, or releasing of the album and the joy that it will bring to people, and the possibility of getting out and playing, the possibilities are such a necessary entity of bringing joy in your life. It is what will lead you to taking action on the things that mean the most to you. And when you do, if you appreciate it, or I should say, when you appreciate it, that happiness will last. You'll wake up the next morning being glad that you had done that because the possibility is still living with you. What if you won the lottery and never spent the money? What if you went shopping with an empty credit card and never bought anything? What if you have a great recipe for something, but you don't make it? Or what if you have the opportunity for a great relationship, but you never become intimate? You're just looking at what it is instead of what it can be. Take the time and think of all of the things in your life that have possibility, that can bring joy to you. Reach for that possibility. Exercise it, work it, and never stop. Speaking of vision, one of mine is coming true. This May, I'm going to be releasing an audiobook of my first book, How to Be Unique, Just Like Everybody Else. Look for that in May. And in the meantime, go to patreon.com/nobowtie and look for exclusive offers and deals on not only that book, but other products and ways to support quality material. And let's get back to more stories about how to sustain happiness. I had one incident in my life recently where it was one person's hell, but if I saw the possibility, it was my heaven. I was going out into the Flint Hills to cut and haul invasive trees. And we're talking about locust and hedge and cedars. The locust and hedge have thorns. They're a pain in the butt to cut down and drag out. The cedars, they get stickies all over you, and it is not fun unless you see the possibility of it. Well, I went out with my brother-in-law, and I thought, what a great opportunity. I saw the possibility of getting some exercise, fresh air, that we would stop and have lunch together and converse, that we would be away from our cell phones and be present with one another, that I would get to hear him talk about his vision for the place and what he's going to do with it and how much he enjoyed the natural essence of the land that he had owned. And we cut and we hauled all day long. And by the end of the day, I was exhausted and I had a blast. We went back to the cabin and we did nothing but talk about how much fun it was. Now, for somebody who saw that as only what it is, let's say it's somebody that he's hiring and all it is so much per hour, get me through the day. When can I have lunch? And I need to get home. And then I've got to come back in the morning and do this again. Huge difference. It's all up in the head, how you see it. Once again, we've run out of time. Be sure to subscribe at nobowtie.com/life. But next week's episode is a must-see. It's a very exciting episode. We're going to talk about a guy who started with nothing but a bike, worked his way up to a Lamborghini, and you'll see what happened next. See you next week. I'm going to give you something that I saw the possibility of in a musical arrangement by a classical composer. Have a great week.
2, 3, ha!